Welcome to the Book Binge. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today is another book haul video. Just like I talked about in my bookshelf tour, my updated bookshelf tour that I did a few months back, I said that I would continue to do book hauls for the physical books that I actually obtain when I had enough to feel like I could actually justify, talking about them and showing them off on the channel. So I've had a few of these books just kind of sitting on my shelf waiting for me to have enough of these to make a video. So now we have enough of them. So we're covering February, March, and April acquisitions. There's a handful of these to talk about. So let's just kind of jump into what I'm actually showing off here. The first one of these is actually one that ended up in that bookshelf tour video, because I had put it on the shelf with some of the other stuff, but had forgotten that I hadn't actually mentioned it in a book haul yet up to that point, and that is Fire in the Steppe. The third book in the Great Polish Trilogy by a name that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because Polish is difficult, man. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this. It was just a matter of I had the series, the trilogy, I guess, put on my radar at one point. Not too long ago, I ended up acquiring the first book in a paperback format, unfortunately, because the hardcover is just too expensive to justify getting. But I got both copies of the second book and then the third book in the hardcovers, so that's cool. Maybe one day I'll splurge and get the true hardcover of the first book so that I can have that set, because that's cool. I don't know a whole lot about the Polish trilogy, but they sounded nice enough to actually buy, so I bought them. Sometimes I have a problem when it comes to that kind of thing. The next book that I do want to show off is, I'm pretty sure actually, the book that I've had waiting on my desk to display in a book haul the longest, and that is the UK hardcover for Shadows Upon Time by Christopher Rocchio, and more than that, the signed and numbered edition for the editions that I own. So I have editions 103 of all of the signed and numbered hardcovers for the series at this point, including everything else you can see on the shelf back there. So there's the UK versions, there's Andorita stuff down here, standard US editions up here, there's the Russian editions up there. Yeah, I have a bit of a Sun Eater collection, and so finishing off the UK hardcover set is pretty slick. Very happy to have that. Oh, I didn't even realize this still had the timeline at the end of it. Oh, that's cool. I don't even know if the US version has that. But then again, I haven't actually looked. I don't even know. That goes to show how committed I am to this series. It's not like I work for the author or anything. But yeah, so there's that next addition to the collection. And then the next acquisitions are sort of relevant to Sun Eater to some degree, and that's because The Sparrow and its sequel, Children of God by Mary Doria Russell, topically and thematically touch on some similar things to Sun Eater and explore them in ways that I think that Sun Eater fans will generally end up enjoying. That's not to say that they are similar stories or anything like that, because they're not, but there are some topical and thematic stuff that is relevant and explored in ways that I think Sun Eater fans would enjoy. I just read The Sparrow for a read along with the Red Company and determined that it was enjoyable enough because I was reading it digitally. I was like, I need to own this physically, and so I bought a physical edition and got the second book to hopefully read before too horribly long, because yeah, Sparrow is great. It is really great and also devastating. So if you're a Sun Eater fan, you are familiar with great and devastating, even though Sparrow is way more dreadful in the term, like actual dread that it exudes, and I guess like implants into the reader, I guess. Yeah, it's a really good book and I recommend it. Speaking of Red Company read-alongs, another book that we did a read-along for a few months back was Oathbreaker, Penance of Blood, which is on the shelf right back there. The second book just came out and released in very late April, so I got my edition of Daughter of Shrikes recently as well. And I also hope to read this before too horribly long, because, yeah, the dark fantasy vibe in here is really, really good. The first book did it super well, and because these are short, if you want some short fantasy, I recommend Oathbreaker because, yeah, that first book, like 300 pages, is very self-contained, very solid, and I'm guessing that Daughter of Shreks will be more of that. We shall see, but it is part of the collection. And, kind of on the same vein of things being similar to each other, the way that The Sparrow and Children of God were similar to Sun Eater in some sense, the fact that Daughter of Shreks was also a read-along book for the Red Company alongside The Sparrow, that relating to this way. This next acquisition is also somewhat similar to The Sparrow, but in a different way, because The Sparrow was a book that I was reading digitally, and decided it was good enough that I wanted to make sure I had a physical copy of it. Perfume is another book that was like this. I did this immersively, but it was digital and audio. And what a good book. Like, Perfume is really, really good. If you want any form of a book that it like takes a literary approach to just describing everything in the most scent-based way compared to what prose typically is like, all of the prose in here is specifically, centered in that sort of vein, and the fact that it is called Perfume makes sense in that sense. And like, there's not very much dialogue in this book. Like, a lot of this is just prose, and the prose is so good. There's a lot of reasons why I enjoyed Perfume, but I read this, and after I was done with it, I was like, there's no way I can't, like, actually own a proper copy of this book, and so I bought the book to own physically instead of just having it digitally, because, yeah, that was really, really good. Now, for the last couple of additions to the library, we're going to move into more of a non-fiction direction here, and the first one of these is David McCullough's biography of John Adams. You may or may not remember, oh man, it probably was a couple years ago at this point. It might have been 2024. I think it was 2024. It might have been last year. I don't remember. In either case, I acquired a few presidential biographies one of the last couple of summers. So I have a few thick biographies for Washington and Grant by Ron Chernow. And I also have the Truman biography by David McCullough. John Adams biography by the same author is also one that is well regarded. So I acquired this recently when there was a sale going on for this book. I think I got that for like a handful of dollars. So I was like, I will take that. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to continue collecting random presidential biographies just because I can, and because I would like to read many of them someday if I would ever remember that reading the nonfiction books that I own is something that I could totally do at any point in time. But I just forget that nonfiction exists most of the time, unfortunately. But maybe if I buy a big enough collection of them, I'll remember to read them. That's definitely not copium. The last one of these books is a little bit more personal in that I've been trying to get in a little bit more touch this year, generally speaking, with my spirituality, religious related stuff. And one of the ways that I want to do this is by starting to do a sort of Sabbath type of thing. What precisely that ends up looking like for me personally, especially like this year or something, I'm not entirely sure yet, but Charlie Kirk's book, Stop in the Name of God, honoring the Sabbath, about the Sabbath, seemed like a really solid way to like actually approach that topic. And when I got the book actually and started skimming through a lot of the ideas and stuff, it's already like reshaping the way that I kind of think about certain things, about like the way that weekends and the Sabbath as a concept in general exists, and just in enough of a way that it's I hope to make like some sort of Sabbath-like thing part of my life. And I think that reading through more of that will give me a little bit of insight into probably how to approach that, because just saying, oh, I want to honor the Sabbath is like kind of a vague idea, and when you think about it too much, it becomes a little bit daunting. So having some place to approach the topic seemed like not a bad idea. So yeah, those are the new acquisitions for the channel this month, for my shelves this month. So that's all that I have to talk about. Yeah, speaking of book haul library stuff, I have been recently actually going on Goodreads and updating my shelves on Goodreads to go with like my library to basically all the shelves on Goodreads for the most part are just the authors for whom I own books for. And then I have a handful of, like, some of those shelves are sticky, like what year I read some of them, the ones that I have read anyway, and similar stuff to that. So I've been updating my Goodreads with that kind of thing. And I have recently gone through and I've finished adding all of the books that I own via audiobook, and I recently finished all the ones that I own via physical book. So that's something, if you either want to check out the bookshelf tour that I did a few months ago that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you can check out that video. That'll show you all the physical books that I own, save for most of these. And then if not, if you want to have a little bit more of a granular view of some of that stuff, my Goodreads is being updated for those purposes as well, so you can check that out in a link in the description. But that is everything that I have for this video. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me Casey, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.